Alright, so welcome back to another series on synths. And in this one, it's, Arturia DX7. So this is the one we're going to learn in this one. Now, this is a series of videos. Of course, you get my easy, one video, and then we're going to build some sounds. But on this ones, we are going to learn how to use the synthesizer. Now, before we start, if this is your first attempt to learn synthesis, just stop, all right? Just stop and go and learn subtractive synthesis. Because first of all, it's just easier just to understand, and you will get like 50 or 60% of the things that you are going to be learning right here. And it's much easier to understand. Things like ADSR, things like filters, then, different envelopes and modulations. You're going to learn all of that with subtractive synthesis. And this is something that we will use right here. The thing is that this thing is a monster machine, and I'm not going to assume that you're starting right here. So things like, again, filters, ADSR, and envelopes, I'm not going to explain them. I'm just going to go and use them because I am assuming that you know subtractive synthesis. And if you check my channel, I've got other series like the Mini B, that will be a great start, or maybe the June 6th. That's another great start. Okay, so of course, once you'll know how to use subtractive synthesis, come back, all right? Because this synthesizer is fantastic. So of course, I know that this right now doesn't look very challenging, but it is a little bit when we go to the advanced, and this looks crazy, right? And looks challenging, but it's just really not, because all the operators are, have the same features. So once you learn one, all the rest are going to be the same. So just relax, okay? Now, learning this plugin and just learning how FM synthesis works, it's not so hard. It's just actually pretty simple. The concept is just very simple. What it's hard, it's all the things you can do, all the sounds you can get with FM synthesis. That's what's, crazy. Because you get an amazing, just a mind-blowing amount of possibilities for different sounds. And that's why it is, just complex. Getting, different sounds and, getting one sound based on 6 different oscillators. But the usage of how we use the tools that we get right here, that is actually pretty simple to understand. But again, it's going to take a little while because we have a lot to learn right here. So go get a coffee, just sit down and just watch, just enjoy. That's it. Now, first, of course, since this can do a lot of things and we have a lot of oscillators, we have 1 to 6, and we're going to learn just one. We're going to pretend that this is just one oscillator synthesizer. And once we learn one, then we're going to go and try to learn the rest, just to mix them. Now, I'm going to go right here, and I'm going to go to the template. Now, on the FM world, on FM synthesis, we have a very specific kind of a language. We don't say just oscillators, because they are this is just much more than just an oscillator. And it's a little bit different. Now, the thing is that since you don't know it yet, if I start using those words like operators, carriers, and, it's going to start getting a little bit confusing. So I'm just going to use the words that we know from subtractive synthesis. And as we advance, I'm going to just, start dropping other, just replace, I'm going to be replacing those words. So, okay. So whenever you open the plugin, you go to default. We always will start from there. And whenever you go here, notice that you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the 1 is the one we're going to use. So I'm going to go right here and you get the volume of each. And for now, I'm just going to call it oscillator. All right, let's call this an oscillator for now. So, okay, so this is the volume. So as soon as you go to default and you turn the volume all the way up and you press a key, you're going to get a sound, right? Of course, if I go all the volume down, we could just get nothing. Okay. So the first thing that you need to learn is that, of course, you need to select the sound. This makes a sound. And this is the first panel that, we get. And this is the most important one, let's say. So, of course, it's the oscillator. And right here, you need to select the waveform. So, of course, if you click on this one, you get a lot of different types of waveforms. And just, just for you to know, the original DX7 had only, the first versions, they have only sine waves. So you cannot, you couldn't use any other, any other of the other things you get right here. It's just a sine wave. And it's amazing, again, the amount of sounds you can get just combining and you're doing FM modulation with sine waves. Just crazy. And notice again, if you go at the bottom, of course you get the sine, it's different shapes. And some of the shapes are the shapes that we already know, like triangle, square, or saw, right? And just different variations of the saw. Yeah, that's it. Pretty simple. That's why you get the classics. And then it says DX7. What the hell is this? Well, of course, as the years went by, they started releasing like expansions for this. So they added, different sine waves. And notice that they are just kind of a, again, just different sine waves. If I go here, we can see that they are just a little bit different. And then they keep adding more. And this is maybe something on the Arturia take that we get. But again, you just get a little bit more than you get in the original one, which was a sine wave. So, okay, so for now, I'm just going to go and select the saw, or yeah, it's just a saw. And it's because we can really hear when we do something, right? We can really hear that one. The sine wave is just a bit too, doing the background for me. So I'm going to go to the saw. All right. So right from the start, we get a lot of waves, and that is super cool. Because when we blend them, we don't need to just use sine waves. We can use other waves, and we have a lot more possibilities than just using sine waves. Okay, so the next one is going to be the invert. And notice that if you press something, if you place something on the keyboard, you can see the shape right here. So what you can do, you can invert it. Notice that it's just a little bit different. Now, of course, if it's just a basic form, we get pretty much the same sound, right? Which is maybe no difference in sound. But this one will invert the waveform. And this is important when you, of course, start blending and doing FM synthesis. Okay, but this is what we get. Now, of course, with any given, synthesizer or oscillator, you get a way of detuning this. So, of course, this is going to be the detune. If I go right here and I go all the way down, notice that we are not going crazy. It's not, a crazy amount of detune. So take this as a kind of a fine tuning. It's just going to go a little bit up and a little bit down. And we can even see this moving right here, right? So this is just a little bit. And just moving this is going to make a lot of difference when we blend them right here later. But for now, we just know that this one creates a little bit of detuning. So next one is going to be the ratio and the fix. And this is how FM synthesis treats all the detuning. Because right now, if you go to subtractive synthesis, you get the ranges or you get the semitones, for example. So this is like the range or semitones, and this is like the fine control, right? So that's it. Yeah. So this is what you get. So now, if I play something and go, notice we get something different, not detune, of course. So this is how FM synthesis works. It goes by ratios. All right, so the other thing is going to be right here, this control, and this is the fine tune. So if I'm playing right here, it is going to go. And just detune, go one up. So that's it. And this is again how the FM synthesis works. We just don't get range or semitones, we get ratio. Okay, so and of course, if you hover on this plugin at the bottom, you will get a description of what this does. So this is the course and this is the fine, right? Okay, so then you get another option that says fixed. And this is something you get on subtractive synthesizers, on some subtractive synths. So if I go to fixed, this is going to change to a kind of a different mode and you get hertz. Now, if you press something, you get nothing. And notice that you get a clicking sound. So what this does, it will convert this oscillator into a low frequency oscillator. If, of course, you're using it on right here, on the frequency and low frequencies. So much later, if we wanted to, we can use this oscillator as a low frequency oscillator to modulate something. Right. Now, of course, this goes in hertz. So as soon as we start going up, we start getting sound. So we get a pitch. So this is like the manual way of just doing this. Now, one more thing, I'm going to go to something like that. Okay. So I'm pressing this key, all right? So we can see it right there, right there. If I go and press a different key, it's the same sound. So behind the scenes, that's why it's fixed. This is kind of a disconnecting the keyboard from whatever it is that we are doing right here. So it doesn't matter we play different keys, it will always play the frequency that you're selecting right here. right? That's the pitch. So it will not do anything else. It doesn't matter which key we press. And again, this is very useful when we want to use a kind of a fundamental note, and then the other operators or oscillators will do something else. This is like a bagpipe will work. This is the low, and on top we're going to do some other melody. So then we could use we can use this just like that. But usually you just use a ratio because it's just the usual keyboard. Okay. So then you get the oscillator sync and the pitch EG. We're going to talk about this later because this one's work with the other operators. So we're going to talk about this one a little bit later. So again, if you think about subtractive synthesis, first you get the oscillators, and the next kind of a thing in the chain is going to be the filtering, right? That's what subtractive synthesis is. So you get a filter. Right, so again, pretty simple. You get the cutoff, and if you go right here and start cutting off, it will cut off the frequencies. Of course, we see the change right here on the waveform. Right, so very simple. Then of course, you get the resonance, so you can do a peak. And again, if you know subtractive synthesis, you should know what I'm talking about. And again, you get just a nice resonance. Right, so the cool thing about this is that we have a low pass, a band pass, and we get a high pass. So we just, do a little bit more kind of a dedicated filtering. Okay, so for now, I'm just going to use the low pass. Now, of course, if you do some cutting off right here, you can do keyboard follow. So right now, every time I press a key, it doesn't matter which key. If I start going up, going up on pitch, we always get kind of the same cutting off. So, and again, all synthesizers have this option. So what we can do is enable the keyboard follow. And this, what it means is that the higher keys will have a different cutoff, pretty much. And the lower keys are going to be a little bit darker. So notice if I playing this and turn this off, everything sounds darker. And it's because the higher keys will keep a little bit of the high frequencies, but the lower keys are just not. All right, so again, pretty simple. This is something that, again, you get with every other synthesizers. And if you wish, you can just turn it off if you don't want it, right? Okay, so I'm going to go back to default again. I'm going to start over. I'm going to select the saw again, and we get the same sound. Cool. So I'm going to go and talk about the envelope because remember when the oscillator makes a sound, then it goes to the filter. We know we can do that. And then of course, after the filter, the sound needs to go out, and we need to decide how the sound goes out in terms of volume, right? And we usually do that when subtractive synthesis with a DSR. So this one again is going to be like the main control, but then right here at the bottom, you get something that says envelope, and this is going to be the ADSR control. Now, you have three different ways. And if I go to envelopes to this tab, notice that you get kind of a weird representation of an envelope. If I change this one right here and go back, notice it's changing it. And you get this tab so you can control the different envelopes, and you can see, the changes of the green. Behind the scenes, we get the purple one, which is a different envelope, because whenever we change an envelope, when we are doing full FM, it will affect the sound radically. That's why you get this view. So you can just, create good patches. So, okay, but for now, notice that you can go right here and just use it right here. But this is the same thing you get right here, but just for this operator, for this one. Okay, so notice again right here at the top, let me go back to the beginning. You get three different modes of envelopes. The usual DX7, which is the one that you get with DX7. Another one, which is kind of a DADSR, like, ADSR. And then you get another one called MSEG. So, okay, so this one, the MSEG, is the most useful one. Because if you know how, subtractive synthesis works, you get ADSR controls. We know that. So this one is going to be the starting point. This one is going to be how long the attack will take to get, full amplitude. And then it's the decay stage, and then the sustain. And then, of course, it's going to go, the sound is going to just go out, right? And notice that right here is just going to the sustain, and then we release, and it goes right here to the sustain, to the release. So, of course, we can do something like this. Right, so it's just pretty simple, right? Now the cool thing is that this mode is the most useful mode because you can create up to 16 different points of an envelope. So whatever you do right here is going to go and do it. And notice that the sustain is right here. So if you right click it, you can delete the different points. And if you double click, you can, and let me just kill the sound. If you do double click, it will move the sustain point to, maybe this point. So if I press something, it's going to, provide this, go in this motion. And then it's going to stop right here. If I provide some sound, we are sustaining right here. And everything else is going to be the release. So it's just great. You get just different ways, a different way of handling ADSR, which is not ADSR anymore. It's just a 16-point envelope. And again, you can just create crazy different movements right here. Right. So it's just great, Of course, if you want to do the classic ones, you get the usual one, and then you get the original one that you get with the DX7 if you wish. In my opinion, this is just, kind of the best way. And you, of course, get some profiles right here that you can click and just get something right out of the box. Now, of course, what you can do right here, whenever you create a point, you can go exponential or you can go linear. And this, of course, will affect how the, envelope goes. All right, so pretty simple. Okay, so, right. Of course, if you're creating different points, it means that the complexity of this one is going to be greater. So you can go and drag it, make it smaller, or you can make it bigger. This is very useful. Very, very useful. Right. So, okay, so again, let me just go back to like gate. This is just pretty much like a gate. So then you get the out. And you have more options right here. And here is where, the real FM synthesis starts. Because we just check it, we get the oscillator, the detuning mode, just the pitch. We get the usual filter and then the amp envelope, right? Not so different so far. So right here in the out, we get some very unusual options that you don't get, which is subtractive synthesis, which is the feedback, for example. So right now, we just get one single oscillator, right? Super simple. Now, as I go, let me just make it smaller. So as I go, and let me just made a mistake on that one. Let me just leave this point. Okay. Very cool. So of course, the feedback and the best way I can explain how this works is like a delay, for example. Sorry, like a delay. When you go up on the feedback, the delay is gonna start feedbacking itself, and it's just gonna start, creating kind of a more intense sound, more complex sound, because of course you're just feedbacking the repeats. So this one works pretty much the same way, but with the oscillator. And every time we go up on the feedback, it's gonna again do that feedback into itself. And what you start to get is more harmonics, and you get more and more and more until you get into the noise and saturation territory. So if I do something and go up on the feedback, notice the sound starts to change. Notice how it breaks right here. And we get that hard sync sound because again, we are just feedbacking the same thing. And if we go all the way up, you get noise. And maybe you're thinking, okay, this is cool. We can do a feedback, but this is not a very useful sound if you think about this. And if you go, and this is just noise, right? So again, this is how you can create noise. But then again, if you go back, this is maybe not a very useful sound. So remember that with the FM synthesis, we are going to use all the other operators to modulate some operator. So maybe this sound, it's something that we are not going to really hear at the end of the day when we create a patch. So the feedback will just make this a little bit different, and it will modulate something else. So this feedback control will just provide a different feel. So for now, it sounds like crap if we use it alone. I want to say crap, it just sounds different. But it's something that we use when we reach the FM kind of a world, when we start modulating all the things. Okay, so then you get the amp sense, which is the amp sensitivity, let's say. And if I go all the way up, notice that kind of nothing happens. And this is the amp modulation sensitivity. Notice that right now, if I go up and just play something, it's just nothing happens. And again, it says amp modulation, so it will modulate the amp, like, the volume. If I go up, nothing happens. But this is because there's a global control right here. And if we go up on this value, take a look at this waveform. So what you get is kind of a tremolo. And of course, if you make it less sensitive, it's going to be nothing, or you get something. Right. So again, we're going to talk about this much later, but this is kind of a tremolo, let's say. Then you get the velocity sensitivity, and this is one is again how how fast you play the keys, how sensitive it's going to be. Pretty simple thing to understand. And then you get the panning control. Go all the way to the right and all the way to the left. Now, of course, if you think about this, at the end of the day, this is not so different from a subtractive synthesizer, right? It's just not so different. Now, the thing is, if you think about this, if you go right here, this operator or this block contains like a whole synthesizer. And this is what FM synthesis is. It will give you like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different synthesizers. So you can select its own forms, own oscillations, own filters. All of them, they have their own filter. The filter is not being shared. So if I go something like this on the operator number 2, the operator number 1 is going to be some other, kind of, some other filtering. So again, each of the operators is like its own living thing, right? Its own synthesizer. And at the end of the day, some of them are going to be modulating some of the other synthesizers, let's say. So again, I'm just going with a kind of a easy explanation. So we get pretty much six different synths, and we can control the oscillator, the envelope, and the filter, and the out. Right? For now, this is what we know. Now here's where the things start to change. Now we don't use the keyboard oscillators, because again, this one is a subset of a collection of things. Oscillator, filter, out, envelope, and blah, 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 blah. Right? It's not just an oscillator. So what this is an operator, right? It's just an operator. This is the keyword or the word we use in FM synthesis. You don't use oscillator, of course, you use operator. And each operator has an oscillator and a filter and an envelope and so on and so on and so on. So you need to remember this when you talk about FM synthesis. It's about operators that have oscillators, filters, and things inside. Right, so from now on, I'm going to just use the keyword operator. And I'm going to, go like that. Much later, when we reach to a different term, I'm going to just let you know why we call it that way. Okay, so we're done on this one. And notice it was very simple. You just get the operator, and now you know how one single operator works. And right from the start, if you just want to create a sound, you can do it, which may be a single, a single oscillator. Right? It's just very simple to understand. And of course, imagine when you start adding on the top 6 different, or 5 in this case, different operators. Just imagine all the possibilities. And in this one, on this synth, on this take of this plugin, you can play the 6 operators alone, right? There's all the operators just coming out of the synthesizer, which is crazy, just crazy. Okay, so we're going to go to the next video. We are done learning this. We know how an operator works. So now we're going to learn how to use the other ones to, make a blend and get an FM sound. So I'm going to go to the next video. I'm going to release a video, a section every single day, or maybe every 2 days. And on the next one, we're going to start with the real FM synthesis.